Exit the vehicle now. This car is flagged as stolen. Officer Brentwood's hand rests on his holster as he stalks toward the black Mercedes. Judge Elaine Washington watches him through her mirror, pulse steady despite the flashing lights that have forced her to the curb 5 blocks from her own courthouse. His voice cuts through the morning air, sharp with accusation. The cruiser's dashboard camera blinks red, silently recording what's about to become the biggest mistake of Brentwood's career. 20 years on the federal bench has taught Washington when to speak and when to let others bury themselves. She reaches deliberately toward her purse. Brentwood tenses, barking orders faster now. The second cruiser's doors swing open, backup arriving for a threat that doesn't exist. Washington's fingers close around her federal judicial ID. She knows exactly how this ends. They don't. Not yet. "I said don't move!" Officer Brentwood shouts, knuckles whitening around his weapon. Judge Washington freezes, ID card half withdrawn from her purse. The morning commuters slow their vehicles, eyes drawn to the confrontation. Phones emerge from windows, recording devices capturing what the dashboard camera already sees. "Officer, I'm simply retrieving my identification as requested," she says, voice level despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I'm Judge Elaine Washington of the Federal District Court." Officer Reynolds exits the second cruiser, approaching with visible uncertainty. His eyes dart between his partner and the composed woman in the driver's seat. "Brentwood, maybe we should—" "She matches the description," Brentwood cuts him off, reaching for his radio. "Dispatch, requesting additional units for a possible stolen vehicle recovery." What these officers don't know will change everything. Just yesterday, Judge Washington delivered the landmark ruling in United States v. Brenner, establishing new standards for police conduct during traffic stops. Her 30-year ascent from military intelligence officer to JAG Corps to the federal bench has prepared her for moments precisely like this one. She counts silently to 10, planning 3 moves ahead. The constitutional violations pile up with each passing second. No reasonable suspicion, no proper identification check, escalation without cause. Reynolds shifts his weight, discomfort evident as more civilians gather. The tension in his shoulders suggests he recognizes the situation spiraling beyond protocol. "Ma'am, please exit the vehicle slowly," he says, his tone markedly different from his partner's. Judge Washington complies, movements deliberate. The morning breeze catches her silk blouse as she steps onto the asphalt, standing tall despite the officer's attempts to diminish her. Her court credentials remain visible in her hand, sunlight catching the federal seal. The courthouse expects her in 20 minutes for a police misconduct hearing. The irony isn't lost on her as she observes Officer Brentwood's name tag, memorizing every detail for what will inevitably follow. "Place your hands on the vehicle," Brentwood demands, ignoring the identification she presents. Judge Washington places her palms against the warm metal of her car, dignity intact despite the humiliation. The real judgment has yet to begin. "I am Judge Elaine Washington of the Federal District Court," she repeats, enunciating each word as Officer Brentwood pats her down with unnecessary thoroughness. "You are making a significant error, officer." Brentwood scoffs, his breath hot against her neck. "Everyone's innocent, everyone's important. Turn around slowly." The gathering crowd murmurs as Judge Washington complies, her eyes scanning the bystanders. Across the street, a young Asian man in a tailored suit watches with intense focus. Thomas Chen, her former clerk and current assistant district attorney, locks eyes with her. She gives an imperceptible nod. Chen immediately pulls out his phone, fingers moving swiftly across the screen as he begins recording. Judge Washington notes the precise time, 9:17 a.m. Every procedural violation adds to the record that will soon become evidence. "Check her ID, man," Officer Reynolds suggests, voice low. His discomfort grows as passing cars slow to witness the scene. "After we secure the situation," Brentwood dismisses, reaching for his handcuffs. The metal catches the morning light as he unclips them from his belt. Judge Washington's mind flashes back to law school, to her first brush with systemic prejudice when a professor suggested she might be more comfortable in family law rather than constitutional theory. She graduated top of her class, authored 3 landmark papers on Fourth Amendment protections, and went on to become the youngest federal judge in the district's history. The handcuffs click shut around her wrists. The sound echoes in her ears like a gavel striking wood. Officer Brentwood, badge number 4572, you are currently violating Code 18, Section 242, regarding deprivation of rights under color of law, she states calmly. Officer Reynolds, badge number 6309, you are witnessing this violation. Brentwood tenses. How do you know our badge numbers? I pay attention, she replies simply. Across the street, Attorney Chen slides his phone into his pocket, evidence secured. He makes a call, speaking urgently into the receiver. Judge Washington recognizes the familiar rhythm of his crisis protocol. 3 people will be notified: the Chief Justice, the District Attorney, and her judicial clerk. Search the vehicle, Brentwood instructs Reynolds, who hesitates before complying. Washington watches as Reynolds opens her car door, carefully examining the interior. His movements lack his partner's aggressive certainty. When he opens the glove compartment, he finds her vehicle registration and proof of insurance, both clearly displaying her name. Brentwood, Reynolds calls, holding up the documents. These look legitimate. Could be forged, Brentwood dismisses without looking. Check the trunk. The radio on Brentwood's shoulder crackles with dispatch requesting an update. He steps away to respond, giving Judge Washington a moment to assess the growing situation. 3 police cruisers now block the street. Morning traffic backs up in both directions. At least 7 bystanders record the scene on their phones. She remembers the exact statute they're violating. She wrote the opinion on it last year. Simmons v's Department of Public Safety established that officers must check identification before detention when no immediate danger exists. Reynolds pops the trunk and goes still. Brentwood, you need to see this. Inside the trunk rest Judge Washington's judicial robes, carefully hung in a garment bag with the federal court seal visible on the breast pocket. Next to it sits her briefcase containing case files for today's docket. Brentwood glances inside unmoved. Anyone can buy a costume. This doesn't feel right, Reynolds mutters, lifting the garment bag for closer inspection. I am invoking my right to counsel, Judge Washington announces clearly, ensuring the dashboard camera captures her words. I am also informing you that you are currently detaining a federal judge on her way to court without cause, without checking readily available identification, and after being informed of my position. Brentwood's radio crackles again. This time, a different voice comes through, deeper, authoritative. Unit 47, this is Lieutenant Foster. What's your current situation with the traffic stop at Maple and 5th? Brentwood frowns at the unexpected inquiry. Standard stolen vehicle procedure, Lieutenant. Suspect detained, vehicle being searched. Has identification been verified? The lieutenant's question hangs in the air. Before Brentwood can respond, a 3rd police cruiser arrives. Lieutenant Diane Foster steps out, her 20 years of experience evident in her measured movements. She surveys the scene with practiced efficiency. The handcuffed woman in professional attire, the growing crowd, the open Mercedes trunk displaying judicial robes. I requested backup, not supervision, Brentwood mutters as Foster approaches. And yet, here I am, Foster replies evenly. She turns to Judge Washington, maintaining a respectful distance. Ma'am, I'm Lieutenant Foster. May I ask your name? Judge Elaine Washington, Federal District Court, Eastern Division, Washington responds, standing straight despite the handcuffs. My identification is in my purse on the passenger seat, which I was attempting to retrieve when Officer Brentwood escalated this situation. Foster's eyes narrow slightly. She recognizes the name. Officer Reynolds, please retrieve the purse. As Reynolds complies, bringing the purse to Foster rather than Brentwood, the lieutenant addresses Washington again. Judge, may I have your permission to open your purse and verify your identification? You have my consent, Washington confirms, noting Foster's procedural correctness, a stark contrast to Brentwood's approach. Foster carefully opens the purse, locating the wallet containing Washington's judicial credentials and driver's license. She examines both, her expression remaining professional but her eyes widening slightly as she confirms the woman's identity. Officers, remove these restraints immediately, Foster orders, her tone leaving no room for argument. Lieutenant, this vehicle matches the description, Brentwood begins. Remove the restraints, officer. Now! Foster's command cuts through his protest. The crowd watches as Reynolds quickly moves to uncuff Judge Washington, murmuring an apology as he does so. Brentwood stands rigid, jaw clenched in defiance. This department is making a mistake, he insists. No, Officer Brentwood, Judge Washington says as she rubs her wrists. You've made several mistakes this morning, and now you're about to learn the consequences. Across the street, Attorney Chen ends his call and nods confidently to Washington. The wheels of justice have begun turning, not in the direction Brentwood anticipated. Please step this way, Judge Washington, Lieutenant Foster says, gesturing toward her cruiser and away from the crowd. I'd like to speak with you privately. Brentwood steps forward. Lieutenant, I haven't completed my investigation. The vehicle still needs... Officer Brentwood, secure the scene and remain by your cruiser, Foster interrupts, her voice steel-wrapped in procedure. Officer Reynolds, join us, please. The mid-morning sun beats down on the asphalt as Washington follows Foster to the command vehicle. Her court session begins in 30 minutes. The judicial clerk has likely already notified the chambers about her delay. I apologize for this situation, Judge, Foster says once they're beside her cruiser. I need to document what's happened here. Officer Reynolds, please start a new incident report. Reynolds pulls out his department tablet, fingers hovering over the screen. The dashboard camera in Foster's vehicle blinks red, adding another layer of documentation to the morning's events. Lieutenant, I was on my way to preside over Hernandez versus Metropolitan Police Department, Washington explains. A case concerning police misconduct during traffic stops. Foster's expression remains professional, but her eyes reveal understanding of the implications. I'm familiar with the case, Your Honor. It's received significant attention within the department. I need my vehicle released immediately, Washington continues, and I require the badge numbers of all officers involved, including dispatch recordings from the initial call. Reynolds types rapidly, documenting every word. Foster nods, making her own notes on a small notepad. Officer, what was the exact description of the stolen vehicle you were looking for? Foster asks Reynolds. He consults his tablet. Dispatch reported a black luxury sedan, possibly a BMW, stolen from the Highland District last night. Partial plate ending in JKW. And Judge Washington's vehicle? Mercedes-Benz S-Class, current year model. Plate ending in RHT, Reynolds answers, the discrepancy now obvious. Not even close, Foster observes. She turns back to Washington. Judge, would you like transportation to the courthouse, or would you prefer to drive your own vehicle? Before Washington can answer, Officer Brentwood approaches, radio in hand. Lieutenant, dispatch is requesting we bring the suspect in for formal questioning. Protocol for stolen vehicles requires... Judge Washington is not a suspect, Foster states firmly. And this is not a stolen vehicle. We need to verify that at the station, Brentwood insists. Washington watches the power struggle unfold, noting Brentwood's unusual persistence despite mounting evidence of his error. His personnel file will make interesting reading. Officer Brentwood, return to your vehicle and stand by, Foster orders. The chief wants this handled by the book, Brentwood counters, revealing his presumed protection. The lieutenant's eyes narrow. Which is precisely what I'm doing. Foster turns to Washington. Judge, I apologize, but to resolve this matter completely, would you consent to accompanying us to the station? I can personally expedite the process and ensure you reach your courtroom as quickly as possible. Washington considers her options. Going to the station extends the record of this incident, creating more witnesses and documentation. Strategic patience has served her well for decades. I'll come to the station on one condition, she agrees. I want to make one phone call now, not upon arrival. Of course, Foster nods. Washington pulls out her phone and dials her clerk. Marcus, please inform Chief Justice Rodriguez that I've been detained by Officers Brentwood and Reynolds during a traffic stop. Lieutenant Foster is currently attempting to resolve the situation. The Hernandez hearing will need to be delayed by 1 hour. She listens briefly before continuing. Yes, exactly like the Hernandez case. Please have Thomas Chen meet me at the Central Precinct with the case files. Another pause. Thank you. The dashboard camera captures every word as Washington ends the call. Brentwood's face tightens as he begins to grasp the magnitude of his mistake. She can ride with me, Foster tells Reynolds. Please secure her vehicle and have it brought to the station. As Washington slides into the back of Foster's cruiser, the suffocating heat wraps around her. Through the window, she watches Brentwood gesturing angrily at Reynolds, radio clutched in his white-knuckled grip. Lieutenant Foster's phone buzzes with a text from the Chief Justice. The screen illuminates briefly, displaying a message Washington can't quite read. Foster's measured composure cracks for just a moment, revealing genuine concern as she slides into the driver's seat. Judge Washington, Foster says quietly as they pull away from the scene, I believe we have a significant situation developing. Central Precinct buzzes with morning activity as Lieutenant Foster escorts Judge Washington through the main entrance. Officers glance up from their desks, conversations halting mid-sentence at the unusual sight. Foster guides Washington not to the standard processing area, but directly to the administrative conference room. Please wait here, Judge Washington. I'll handle the paperwork personally, Foster says, her professionalism unwavering despite the tension radiating through the building. As Foster exits, Washington takes stock of her surroundings. The conference room offers a clear view of the bullpen through interior windows. Officers gather in small clusters, whispered conversations punctuated by glances in her direction. Brentwood arrives, striding purposefully toward the chief's office. Washington checks her watch, 9:42 a.m. Her courtroom sits empty while attorneys and spectators wonder about the unusual delay. The door opens as Foster returns with a tablet and forms. Judge, I've pulled the complete dispatch record. There are discrepancies I'd like to address. What kind of discrepancies, Lieutenant? Washington asks, though she already suspects the answer. Foster places the tablet between them, displaying the morning's dispatch log. The stolen vehicle report came in at 8:17 a.m. A black BMW 5 Series with partial plate JKW, reportedly taken from the Highland District garage. She swipes to the next screen. Officer Brentwood called in your plates at 9:14 a.m. Dispatch responded that your vehicle, Mercedes S-Class, plate RHT, was not flagged in the system. Yet he proceeded to detain me, Washington observes. Yes, Foster confirms, making a note. He requested backup after dispatch cleared your vehicle. A memory surfaces in Washington's mind. Foster attending a community policing seminar Washington had conducted last year. The lieutenant had asked thoughtful questions about constitutional protections during stops and searches. 3 years ago, I presided over Williams v. State, Washington says. An officer detained a black business owner despite dispatch clearing the vehicle. The department settled for $1.2 million. Foster nods slowly. I remember the case well. It led to our revised traffic stop protocols. Protocols Officer Brentwood appears to have ignored, Washington adds. The station erupts into chaos as a name appears on the computer screen at the dispatch desk visible through the window. An officer points to Washington's name on the monitor, urgency in his movements. The desk sergeant grabs a phone, punching numbers with unusual haste. Lieutenant, I need to see Officer Brentwood's record, Washington says, particularly any complaints regarding traffic stops of minority drivers. Foster hesitates. That would require authorization from... The door swings open as Chief of Police Martinez enters, face drawn with concern. Judge Washington, I've just been informed of this situation. Chief Martinez, Washington acknowledges, I believe we have a serious matter to discuss. Indeed, he agrees, taking a seat. Lieutenant Foster has briefed me on the initial details. I want to assure you this incident will be thoroughly investigated. I was on my way to court, Chief Martinez, Washington explains, to preside over Hernandez v. Metropolitan Police Department, a case alleging systemic bias in traffic stops and searches. The chief's expression tightens almost imperceptibly. I'm familiar with the case. As the federal judge assigned to evaluate whether your department requires Justice Department oversight, Washington continues, I find the timing of this morning's incident noteworthy. Lieutenant Foster steps away, phone in hand, creating professional distance from the conversation while remaining within earshot. Judge Washington, I want to personally apologize for any inconvenience, Martinez offers. We can have you at the courthouse within 15 minutes. This is considerably more than an inconvenience, Chief Martinez, Washington corrects him. This is a direct violation of my Fourth Amendment rights by officers under your command officers who ignored dispatcher confirmation that my vehicle was not the one reported stolen. Martinez's carefully maintained composure slips. The dispatcher confirmed your vehicle wasn't stolen? Before the stop escalated? Lieutenant Foster has the complete transcript, Washington confirms. Officer Brentwood requested backup after receiving that confirmation. Foster returns to the table. Chief, I've confirmed the timeline. Dispatch cleared the judge's vehicle before Officer Brentwood called for backup or removed her from the vehicle. Where is Officer Brentwood now? Martinez asks, tension evident in his voice. Waiting in your outer office, Foster reports, along with Officer Reynolds. Washington observes the shift in dynamics, Martinez reassessing the situation. Foster's allegiance to proper procedure overriding departmental solidarity, Brentwood isolated by his actions. Chief Martinez, I need to make something absolutely clear, Washington says, leaning forward slightly. This incident will be thoroughly documented not just for my personal vindication, but because it demonstrates precisely the pattern of behavior alleged in the Hernandez case. Martinez nods grimly. I understand, Judge. Do you? Washington challenges. Because Officer Brentwood's actions this morning may have just provided the evidence needed to place your entire department under federal oversight. The chief's phone buzzes with an incoming call. He checks the screen, his expression darkening further. It's the mayor. You should take that, Washington suggests. Meanwhile, I'll require the complete personnel files for both officers involved. All body camera and dashboard footage, dispatch recordings, and witness statements from civilians at the scene. 3 judges and the district attorney are now on a conference call, their secretaries frantically rescheduling dockets to address the unfolding situation. Washington knows the system is mobilizing, not just for her, but for what her experience represents. Lieutenant Foster, Washington says as the chief steps away to take his call, you recognize the procedural violations immediately. Why did you respond to the scene personally? Foster hesitates before answering. Your vehicle passed me 2 blocks before the stop. I recognized you from your community lectures on constitutional policing. When I heard the call for backup at that location, she pauses. I had concerns. You knew Officer Brentwood's history, Washington concludes. I've worked with him for 3 years, Foster acknowledges. There have been patterns. Documented patterns? Washington presses. 7 complaints filed, 2 formal reprimands, Foster confirms. All involving minority drivers, all dismissed due to lack of evidence or witnesses unwilling to testify. The atmosphere shifts as Attorney Thomas Chen appears in the doorway, court documents tucked under his arm and determination in his stride. Judge Washington, he greets her formally, maintaining professional distance despite their years of collaboration. The Chief Justice has called an emergency meeting of the Judicial Council. They've temporarily reassigned the Hernandez case pending resolution of this morning's incident. Reassigned or delayed? Washington asks, noting the critical distinction. Reassigned to you specifically in your capacity as head of the Judicial Conduct Committee, Chen clarifies, with expanded scope to include this incident as evidence. Lieutenant Foster's gaze shifts between them, understanding dawning in her eyes. The booking officer freezes, fingers hovering over the keyboard as he processes the information. Chief Martinez returns, his conversation with the mayor evidently concluded. Judge Washington, how would you like to proceed? The courthouse clock strikes 10. Her trial was scheduled to begin 5 minutes ago. In the judicial chambers, clerks field increasingly urgent calls from attorneys present for the Hernandez hearing. The empty bench speaks volumes to those gathered in the courtroom. Back at the precinct, Chief Martinez leads Judge Washington, Lieutenant Foster, and Attorney Chen into his private office. The Venetian blinds slice the morning sunlight into thin stripes across the polished desk. Judge Washington, I want to resolve this situation appropriately, Martinez begins, his tone calibrated for damage control. Officer Brentwood's actions were clearly inconsistent with department protocols. They were inconsistent with federal law, Washington corrects him, placing her judicial credentials on his desk. The gold emblem catches the light, a reminder of her authority that transcends the police department's jurisdiction. Martinez nods reluctantly. Yes, of course. I've instructed Internal Affairs to begin an immediate investigation. That's insufficient, Chief, Washington replies. This incident falls under federal purview now. Chen opens his briefcase, extracting a court order signed by the Chief Justice himself. This authorizes immediate preservation of all evidence related to this morning's incident, including Officer Brentwood's complete service record, all communications preceding the traffic stop, and station security footage from today. Martinez's face drains of color as he listens to his phone. The voice on the other end speaks urgently enough that Washington catches fragments, Federal Review and Justice Department notification. Outside the office, officers move with renewed purpose. The department's legal counsel arrives, briefcase in hand, jacket hastily buttoned. The atmosphere shifts from routine to crisis management. Washington checks her watch again, 10:17 a.m. The Hernandez attorneys wait, unaware that their case has just acquired powerful new evidence. Chief Martinez, Washington says, I'd like to speak with Officers Brentwood and Reynolds separately. Of course, Martinez agrees too quickly. Lieutenant Foster can arrange that immediately. As Foster steps out to organize the interviews, Washington notices a memo on Martinez's desk, a department-wide body camera initiative she had mandated in her ruling last month. The implementation date? Tomorrow. Chen leans close to Washington, voice low. Judge, the courthouse security team is reviewing footage from 2 weeks ago. Officer Brentwood was seen outside your chambers, apparently off-duty. This new information slots into place in Washington's mental framework. Not just a random stop, but potentially targeted surveillance. The pattern expands, implications deepening. Through the office window, she observes Brentwood pacing in the waiting area, his confident demeanor now fractured by uncertainty. Reynolds sits separately, head bowed as he reviews his notes. Chief Martinez's face suggests he just received troubling news, Washington murmurs to Chen. The department's already under review for 3 excessive force complaints, Chen confirms. This incident could trigger the federal oversight they've been fighting to avoid. Foster returns, tablet in hand. Interview rooms are ready, Judge Washington. Officer Reynolds has agreed to speak with you first. Martinez's phone buzzes again. The chief's expression shifts from concern to alarm as he views the message. What is it? Washington asks, though she already suspects. The Attorney General's office, Martinez answers, voice tight. They're sending a representative. The department's wall clock ticks loudly in the sudden silence. Every minute that passes reshapes the balance of power in the room. Chief Martinez closes the door to his office, face grim. Judge Washington sits across from Officer Reynolds in interview room 2, Lieutenant Foster standing sentinel by the door. The stark fluorescent lighting casts harsh shadows across Reynolds' increasingly troubled expression. "Officer Reynolds," Washington begins, "please walk me through this morning's events from your perspective." Reynolds straightens his posture, eyes fixed on the middle distance. "We received a call about a stolen vehicle at approximately 8:45 a.m. Black luxury sedan, partial plate ending in JKW. And when did you join Officer Brentwood at the scene of my stop?" Washington asks. "I arrived at 9:16 a.m. as backup," Reynolds confirms. "Officer Brentwood had already initiated contact with you." Washington leans forward slightly. "Did Officer Brentwood inform you that dispatch had already cleared my vehicle before you arrived?" Reynolds blinks, surprise evident. "No, Your Honor. He stated it was a confirmed stolen vehicle match." Foster makes a note on her tablet, the soft tapping of her fingers punctuating the silence. "Officer Reynolds," Washington continues, "did you personally verify my identification when it was presented?" "No, Your Honor," he admits. "Officer Brentwood instructed me to search the vehicle while he maintained control of the situation." "And when you discovered my judicial robes and credentials in the vehicle?" "I informed Officer Brentwood immediately," Reynolds says, discomfort visible in his posture. "He dismissed them as possibly costume items." Washington nods, allowing silence to fill the room. The interview room camera records every word, every expression. Through the observation window, Chief Martinez watches with growing concern. "One final question, Officer Reynolds. Have you witnessed Officer Brentwood conduct similar stops of minority drivers before?" Reynolds hesitates, the internal conflict evident in his expression. Officer Brentwood has his own approach to traffic enforcement. "That's not what I asked," Washington presses. "Yes," Reynolds finally admits. "I've observed him conduct stops of minority drivers with heightened scrutiny." "Thank you for your honesty, Officer Reynolds," Washington concludes. "Lieutenant Foster will take your formal statement." As Reynolds exits, Attorney Chen enters with a laptop. "Judge, I've received the dispatch recordings and Officer Brentwood's body camera footage from this morning." Washington nods to Foster. "Please bring in Officer Brentwood." While they wait, Chen places the laptop before Washington. "The time-stamped dispatch record contradicts everything Officer Brentwood claimed. Dispatch clearly informed him your vehicle wasn't the stolen BMW before he escalated the stop." The door opens as Officer Brentwood enters, confident stride now reduced to cautious steps. He takes the seat across from Washington, eyes challenging despite his precarious position. "Officer Brentwood," Washington begins, voice perfectly calm. "I'd like to understand why you continued to detain me after dispatch confirmed my vehicle was not stolen." "I had reasonable suspicion based on the vehicle description," he replies automatically. Washington allows the statement to hang in the air before responding. "The stolen vehicle was a black BMW with partial plate JKW. I drive a Mercedes with plate RHT. Please explain the basis for your reasonable suspicion." Brentwood shifts in his chair. "The suspect description?" "There was no suspect description in the stolen vehicle report," Foster interrupts, referring to her tablet. "The BMW was stolen from a parking garage overnight. No suspects were identified." Sweat beads on Brentwood's forehead as he recalibrates. "I believe the vehicle could still be connected to the theft." "Based on what evidence?" Washington asks. "Officer instinct," Brentwood replies, jaw tight. "Years of experience." Washington studies him for a moment. "Officer Brentwood, are you aware that I served 8 years in military intelligence before attending law school? That I specialized in detecting deception patterns?" His eyes widen slightly, uncertainty flashing across his face. "Your body language, vocal stress patterns, and pupil dilation all indicate deliberate deception," Washington continues. "Now let me ask again. Why did you escalate a routine traffic stop after dispatch cleared my vehicle?" "I want union representation," Brentwood demands suddenly. "That's your right for departmental disciplinary matters," Washington acknowledges. However, this interview concerns potential federal civil rights violations, which fall under my judicial purview. Chen turns the laptop screen toward Brentwood, displaying the dispatch log. The timestamp shows dispatch cleared Judge Washington's vehicle at 9:12 a.m. You called for backup at 9:14 a.m. claiming a confirmed stolen vehicle. Brentwood's expression hardens as he recognizes the evidence mounting against him. I want to speak with the chief. Chief Martinez is currently speaking with the Attorney General's office, Foster informs him, regarding potential federal oversight of this department. The pen scratching on incident reports fills the momentary silence. Chairs scrape across the floor as Foster adjusts her position, standing directly behind Brentwood. Officer Brentwood, Washington says finally, did you know who I was when you initiated the traffic stop this morning? The question hangs in the air, loaded with implications. Brentwood's silence provides its own answer. Interview concluded at 10:43 a.m., Foster states for the record, stopping the recording. Judge Washington, your vehicle has been brought around front, Chief Martinez announces, holding the station's front door open. The midday sun bathes the precinct steps as Washington emerges from the building's shadow. She straightens her jacket and steps into the sunlight. The release feels temporary, a brief respite before the storm that's building. Attorney Chen walks beside her, his phone buzzing continuously with messages from the courthouse. The Chief Justice himself waits on the courthouse steps, Chen informs her, scrolling through the cascade of notifications. The entire Judicial Council has convened an emergency session. Washington nods, taking a deep, cleansing breath. The events of the morning have unfolded with remarkable speed, yet the most significant consequences remain ahead. Thomas, I want the complete personnel files for both officers before the hearing, she instructs, and subpoena Officer Brentwood's personal phone records for the past month. Already in process, Chen confirms. The Chief Justice granted expedited discovery given the circumstances. Lieutenant Foster approaches with Washington's car keys. Judge Washington, I've had your vehicle thoroughly inspected. Everything's in order. Thank you, Lieutenant, Washington acknowledges. Your professionalism this morning is noted. Foster hesitates, then adds quietly, I've submitted a formal statement regarding Officer Brentwood's pattern of conduct. I should have done it sooner. Washington studies the lieutenant's face, recognizing the courage such an action requires within police culture. The timing of your statement is significant, Lieutenant. It demonstrates integrity when faced with clear misconduct. Foster nods once, understanding the weight of Washington's words. As Washington slides behind the wheel of her Mercedes, she catches sight of Officer Brentwood exiting the station with his union representative. His face darkens when he spots her. The look contains more than anger. There's fear now, the dawning realization that his actions have consequences beyond his control. Chen's phone rings with a call from the courthouse. Yes, we're departing now, he confirms. Judge Washington will arrive in approximately 12 minutes. Washington starts the engine, mentally shifting from wronged citizen back to federal judge. The transformation feels seamless. Both roles demand precision, patience, and an unwavering commitment to justice. Thomas, she says as they pull away from the precinct, it's time to bring everything to light. The federal courthouse rises like a marble sentinel against the midday sky. News vans already crowd the plaza, reporters positioning themselves for the unfolding story. Judge Washington enters through the judicial chamber's entrance, avoiding the media gauntlet. Chief Justice Rodriguez meets her in the private corridor, his typically stoic expression replaced by genuine concern. Elaine, this is unprecedented. Are you certain you want to proceed today? Absolutely certain, Washington confirms, removing her coat. The Hernandez case and this morning's incident are now inextricably linked. The courtroom is at capacity, Rodriguez informs her. Every law enforcement official in the city seems to be present. Washington nods, unsurprised. Good. This needs witnesses. In the robing room, she slips into her judicial garments, the same robes Officer Brentwood had dismissed as a costume. The heavy black fabric settles on her shoulders with familiar weight. She checks her appearance in the mirror, adjusting the white collar that contrasts sharply against the obsidian fabric. "Judge," Chen says from the doorway, "everyone's assembled. Chief Martinez arrived with department counsel. Officers Brentwood and Reynolds are present with union representation. Lieutenant Foster just took her seat." "And our evidence?" "Ready for presentation," Chen confirms. "Sequential and comprehensive." Washington takes a steadying breath. 20 years on the federal bench has prepared her for moments precisely like this one, when the law must stand firm against those who abuse their authority. "Then let's proceed," she says, stepping toward the courtroom. The bailiff's voice rings out as she enters. "All rise. The United States District Court for the Eastern District is now in session. The Honorable Judge Elaine Washington presiding." The packed courtroom rises in unison. Washington surveys the assembly as she takes her seat at the bench. Chief Martinez sits with his legal team at the front. Officers Brentwood and Reynolds occupy seats behind them, expressions tense. Lieutenant Foster sits separately, spine straight, gaze forward. "Be seated," Washington instructs, her voice carrying effortlessly through the chamber. "This court now addresses the consolidated matters of Hernandez Vaz, Metropolitan Police Department, and the incident involving this judge earlier today." She places her hands flat on the bench, leaning forward slightly. "For those unfamiliar with federal procedure, I will explain my decision to preside over this matter despite being personally involved. Federal judiciary rules permit a judge to hear cases involving themselves when the matter concerns the integrity of the judicial process itself. The courtroom hangs on her every word, the silence absolute. Moreover," she continues, "as my military and judicial records will confirm, I am uniquely qualified to evaluate the constitutional implications of today's events." Washington nods to Chen, who activates the courtroom's display system. Her military service record appears on screens throughout the chamber. "Before my appointment to the federal bench, I served 8 years in military intelligence with the United States Army, achieving the rank of major. I graduated first in my class from West Point, specialized in counterintelligence at Fort Huachuca, and served as legal counsel for the Judge Advocate General's Corps." The screens transition to her judicial appointment records. "Following my military service, I graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Law, clerked for the Supreme Court, and have served on this bench for 20 years. I currently chair the Judicial Conduct Committee for this district." Washington pauses, allowing her qualifications to register fully with the audience. Officer Brentwood shifts uncomfortably in his seat. "This morning's incident provides a unique opportunity to examine police conduct not through second-hand testimony, but through direct evidence. Mr. Chen, please proceed with Exhibit 1. The courtroom falls silent as the video begins to play. Dashboard camera footage captures the entire traffic stop from initial approach to Washington's removal from her vehicle. The crystal-clear audio records every word of the interaction. "Note the timestamp," Washington directs as the video continues. "At 9:12 a.m., dispatch informs Officer Brentwood that my vehicle is not the stolen BMW. 17 seconds later, he requests backup for a confirmed stolen vehicle." The attorneys representing the police department exchange concerned glances. This direct contradiction cannot be explained away. As the video concludes, Chen transitions to the next exhibit bystander footage from multiple angles, showing the escalation from additional perspectives. These recordings were voluntarily provided by 7 citizens who witnessed the incident, Washington explains. They corroborate the dashboard camera footage and provide additional angles not captured by police equipment. Officer Brentwood's union representative leans over, whispering urgently in his ear. The officer's face has lost its confident defiance, replaced by the pallor of realization. "Exhibit 3, Washington continues, the complete dispatch recordings." The audio plays clearly through the courtroom speakers. "Unit 47, Vehicle plate RHT shows registered to Elaine Washington, no flags or alerts. Not a match for the stolen BMW. Followed by Brentwood's response, Dispatch, I have a confirmed stolen vehicle, requesting backup at Maple and 5th. The direct contradiction hangs in the air, indefensible. Exhibit 4, Washington announces. Officer Brentwood's personnel file. Chen displays the document on the courtroom screens, key sections highlighted for emphasis. This file contains 12 civilian complaints over 3 years, all filed by minority drivers alleging improper stops, excessive force, or unlawful searches. All 12 complaints were dismissed due to insufficient evidence or witness credibility issues. Washington looks directly at Chief Martinez. However, when cross-referenced with dispatch records, a pattern emerges. In 9 of these incidents, Officer Brentwood proceeded with detention after dispatch had cleared the vehicles or individuals in question. The chief's expression remains carefully neutral, but his attorney scribbles notes with increasing urgency. Exhibit 5, Washington continues, security footage from this courthouse dated 2 weeks ago. The video shows Officer Brentwood, in plain clothes, observing the judicial entrance. He follows Washington to her car, photographing her vehicle with his personal phone. Officer Brentwood was not on duty that day, Washington notes, nor was there any legitimate police business that would bring him to this courthouse. She turns her attention directly to Brentwood. Officer, would you care to explain your presence at this federal building while off duty and your apparent surveillance of a federal judge? The union representative places a restraining hand on Brentwood's arm, preventing him from responding. Perhaps this will clarify matters, Washington continues, nodding to Chen. Exhibit 6. Officer Brentwood's phone records obtained by a federal subpoena 30 minutes ago. The records appear on screen, specific numbers highlighted. These records show multiple calls between Officer Brentwood and Roger Simmons, the defendant in last month's police brutality case over which I presided. Mr. Simmons, formerly an officer with Metropolitan Police Department, was found liable for $3.2 million in damages. A murmur ripples through the courtroom as the connections become clear. The timing of these calls immediately before and after my ruling, and again yesterday following my decision in the departmental review case, suggests coordination that extends beyond Officer Brentwood's individual actions. Washington turns her attention to Lieutenant Foster. Lieutenant, based on your experience and the evidence presented, would you characterize Officer Brentwood's actions this morning as consistent with department policy? Foster stands, her response clear and unwavering. No, Your Honor. His actions violated multiple departmental protocols and, in my professional assessment, constitutional protections against unreasonable search and seizure. Thank you, Lieutenant, Washington acknowledges. Your testimony is noted. Officer Brentwood's personnel file lands with a thud on the bench as Washington picks up the thick folder. This court now faces a critical question, she continues. Was this morning's incident an isolated abuse of authority or evidence of systemic failure within the Metropolitan Police Department? She surveys the courtroom, her gaze lingering on each key figure. The Hernandez case alleges that minority drivers face disproportionate stops, searches, and detentions even when dispatch clears their vehicles, even when identification is presented, even when no reasonable suspicion exists. Washington leans forward. My personal experience this morning demonstrated precisely the pattern alleged in the Hernandez complaint. The evidence is not merely compelling, it is conclusive. She straightens, her decision made. This court finds sufficient evidence to expand the Hernandez inquiry into a comprehensive department-wide review under federal oversight. Chief Martinez rises to object, but Washington continues. The Department of Justice will appoint special monitors to oversee all aspects of Metropolitan Police Department operations for a period of not less than 3 years. All traffic stop data will be independently analyzed for pattern and practice violations. She turns to Officer Brentwood. As for the constitutional violations committed against this court, I am recusing myself from those determinations. Those matters will be referred to Judge Williams in the Western District for appropriate action. Judge Washington reads the final affidavit, her voice unwavering. This court retains jurisdiction over the implementation of reforms and will require quarterly progress reports. The first report is due in 90 days. She lifts her gavel. Officer Brentwood is immediately suspended pending termination proceedings. Officer Reynolds is placed on administrative leave pending further investigation. The gavel strikes with finality. This court is adjourned until tomorrow at 9 a.m., when we will begin structuring the oversight framework. As Washington rises, the courtroom remains standing in stunned silence. Through the windows, television cameras capture the moment justice realigns, not through violence or vengeance, but through the methodical application of law. 6 months later, recruits file into the Academy auditorium. The room buzzes with anticipation as cadets take their seats. Academy manuals open on their laps. The cover reads, Constitutional Policing, Rights, Responsibilities, and Reform. Judge Elaine Washington stands at the podium, her judicial robes exchanged for a tailored suit. The projector displays dashboard camera footage, her own traffic stop, now standard teaching material for every officer in training. Your badge grants you authority, she tells the attentive cadets. But authority without accountability becomes tyranny. The back doors open as Lieutenant Foster, now Captain Foster, enters. Her new insignia catches the light as she takes her place at the side of the stage. Under her leadership, the department's newly formed Accountability Division has begun reshaping police culture from within. 6 months ago, a traffic stop exposed systemic failures within this department, Washington continues. Today, I'm here to discuss the transformations those failures have produced. She advances the presentation to display the department's revised metrics. Complaints down 47%. Unlawful detentions reduced by 62%. Community trust ratings improving steadily month over month. Change is difficult, Washington acknowledges, particularly when it requires examining deeply ingrained practices. But necessary change produces justice, not just for citizens, but for officers committed to honorable service. In the front row, Chief Martinez listens with newfound humility. The federal oversight initially viewed as punishment has become an opportunity for departmental renewal. His resistance has transformed into cautious collaboration. The incident that catalyzed these reforms wasn't isolated, Washington explains. It represented a pattern that had developed over years, a pattern that undermined constitutional protections and eroded community trust. She advances to the next slide. Officer Brentwood's termination notice beside his subsequent federal indictment for civil rights violations. The former officer now awaits trial, his connection to the previously convicted Roger Simmons fully exposed through phone records and financial transactions. Officer Reynolds chose a different path, Washington notes, displaying his statement of cooperation. By acknowledging his failure to intervene and committing to reform, he exemplifies the potential for growth within the system. Reynolds now works with the Accountability Division, his first-hand experience informing training on peer intervention and ethical policing. His testimony against Brentwood proved instrumental in the federal case. The strength of our justice system lies not in its perfection, but in its capacity for correction, Washington continues. When we identify failures, we create opportunities for improvement. She gestures to Captain Foster, inviting her to join the presentation. Foster approaches the podium with measured confidence, her transformation from witness to leader evident in her posture. Captain Foster pins on her new badge, Washington observes as Foster displays her credentials. Not as a reward for loyalty to individuals, but as recognition of her loyalty to principles. Foster addresses the cadets directly. 6 months ago, I faced a choice between protecting a colleague and protecting the Constitution I swore to uphold. I chose the Constitution. Every day, you will face similar choices. The cadets absorb her words, many taking notes. This is not abstract theory, but practical wisdom from officers who have navigated ethical challenges firsthand. The dashboard camera that recorded my detention has become your protection, Washington tells them. Transparency safeguards officers who serve with integrity. It exposes those who abuse their authority. The camera doesn't lie, it simply observes. The presentation shifts to statistics from departments nationwide. Those embracing accountability measures show improved safety for citizens and officers alike. Those resisting reform continue to face lawsuits, settlements, and declining public trust. Constitutional policing isn't just legally required, Washington emphasizes. It's strategically advantageous. Communities that trust their police departments provide more cooperation, more information, and more support. As the session concludes, Washington opens the floor for questions. The cadets engage thoughtfully, their inquiries revealing genuine commitment to ethical service rather than perfunctory compliance. After the final question, Washington offers her closing thoughts. When I was wrongfully detained 6 months ago, I had a choice. I could seek personal vindication, or I could pursue systemic reform. I chose reform because lasting justice comes through transformed institutions, not individual penalties. She surveys the room, making eye contact with the future officers. Each of you will hold extraordinary power over the lives of citizens. Use that power with wisdom, restraint, and respect for the constitutional protections that define our nation. The auditorium fills with applause as Washington concludes her presentation. Outside, television crews wait to interview her about the department's progress under federal oversight, a model now being studied by police departments across the country. Judge Washington takes her seat at the bench, a new case before her. The courtroom looks the same as it did 6 months ago, yet everything has changed. The officers providing security stand taller, their training reformed, their understanding of constitutional limits clearer. The morning sunlight streams through the courthouse windows, illuminating the scales of justice mounted on the wall. Balance restored, not through vengeance, but through accountability. Washington thinks briefly of Officer Brentwood, now facing the consequences of his actions through the same judicial system he had disregarded. His case proceeds not as retribution, but as affirmation that no one, regardless of badge or position, stands above the law. She opens the case file before her, another allegation of systemic misconduct in a different institution. The work continues, one case at a time, one reform at a time. Justice requires vigilance, courage, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. The bailiff calls the court to order. Judge Washington straightens her robes, ready to apply the law with the impartiality and integrity that has defined her career. The system isn't perfect, but its capacity for self-correction remains its greatest strength. This court is now in session, she announces, her voice steady and clear. If this tale of justice served and accountability in action resonated with you, there's plenty more where that came from. Hit that subscribe button right now to join our community of justice seekers and story lovers. Each week, we bring you powerful narratives where underdogs rise, wrongs are righted, and the truth prevails. From courtroom dramas to everyday heroes standing up against corruption, Beat Stories delivers the emotional catharsis you crave. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who appreciates a good justice story, and ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads.
This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of what happens when truth meets visibility. At Beat Stories, we believe exposure is the first step to transformation. Subscribe and stay tuned, because the next story might be yours.